Hello there, my name is Martin Henley. This is the Effective Marketing YouTube channel, and I've lost count of what episode we are up to in my Talk Marketing series. But if you've spent any time on this channel at all, you will know that I am on a mission to give you everything you need to be successful in your business. Now, the only way I know for you to be successful in your business is through your sales and marketing, and that's what this channel is about. Not only am I here giving you everything I know about sales and marketing, I am dragging in anyone who will speak to me to extract their marketing, sales and marketing knowledge and experience to benefit you also. Now, today's guest is interesting because I look at people's LinkedIn profiles to put together a bit of an introduction, and I tracked his sales experience back to 1986. So that was 36 years ago. So 36 years he has been involved in selling publicly, involved in sales and marketing. And to put that into context, what he was selling at that time was fax machines. Now, I've had a little chat with him already, and he tells me actually he's been in sales and marketing for 50 years. So his first sales job was in 1971. So what we're dealing here is a man who has a lifetime of sales and marketing experiences earned on the battlefield. His words, not mine. So he has been providing sales and marketing consultancy since 2004. He's been director of his business Media Glue since 2008. He has been running PPC campaigns for his customers since 2000 for 20 years this month, he tells me. What's interesting about James, there's lots that's interesting about James, but he decided 3 years ago he hates wearing trousers. So now he wears skirts all of the time. And people enjoy that, apparently. So today's guest is James Yuille. Am I pronouncing that correctly, James?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here, man. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Because it's about PPC, but because clearly you've got your own way of doing things. People are going to be interested to hear more about this skirts thing. So what is that about? Is it a proclivity for women's clothing? Is there some gender confusion going on here in the latter years of your life? Why on earth have you decided to start wearing skirts, James?
Well, after many years of wearing trousers, I just decided that I hated them. And one day on a total whim, I bought a skirt, loved it. And then I decided that an easier way into it was to wear kilts. And I've got Scots heritage. My surname's Scots. So I bought a couple of kilts and I wore them for a year or so. And actually, I found they're a great conversation piece. People saying weird things like, what do you wear under your skirt? And under your kilt, and I would say shoes. And then they'd say things like, where are your bagpipes? And I'd say, well, I don't know. Where's your didgeridoo? You seem to have that and not have it with you. But it was actually fun, and I got a lot of compliments. So I just decided to, diversify and, they're comfortable. I like them, and nobody seems to care. So it certainly hasn't made any difference to my business.
Fantastic.
Why should it? I mean, what the hell? Some people have beards, some people have tattoos, some people have piercings, some people have shaved heads, It's just personal choice.
It is just personal choice, and, I applaud it. I live here in the tropics, and I will tell everyone at every instance, the only time I put socks on nowadays is to go to the gym or to play squash, and I hate socks, so I enjoy that thoroughly. So yeah, it's your personal choice. I applaud you, man. More power to you. I also enjoy to wear a sarong occasionally. I'm not ready to make the switch full time, but yeah, more power to you, brother.
Thank you.
You are very welcome. But we're not here to talk about you wearing skirts. We're here to talk about sales and marketing because you have been in sales and marketing as long as I've been alive. Which is, I don't want to labor the point, but that's a long time. So the point of these conversations is really to, I'm stuck wanting to support people who don't know they need our help yet, is the truth. it seems to me that people go into business without realizing that being in business is a process of having customers profitably, and if you don't fix that part of your business, you aren't going to be successful in business. So this is why I say the only way I know to support people in their business is by giving them sales and marketing stuff. So so here I'm wanting to extract as much as I can from your 50 years of marketing lessons on the battlefield, so that people don't have to suffer like that. This is particularly interesting today because when I started, a long time after you started, we weren't contending with global corporations. We weren't dancing with the Googles and the Facebooks of the world. The sharks that we were contending with were people who might phone you up and sell you advertising. I was one of those sharks. Or someone might sell you, I don't know, a direct mail campaign or a I don't know, a listing on a flyer or whatever those things might be. So I think the game has changed, especially where you play the game, because I teach digital marketing. And when it comes to the parts about PPC, especially Google PPC, the main point I want to make is that Google wants your money, and Google is very good at taking your money. So you have to be, I'm interested to know how you do this, but from where I'm sitting, you have to be extraordinarily cute to get value out of a relationship with Google, is what I'm thinking. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. There are 5 questions, like you know. The first question is, how are you qualified to talk to us about marketing? The second question is, who do you work with and how do you add value in their lives? The third question is, what are your recommendations for anyone who's looking to do better, in this instance with their PPC? The fourth question is, what should people read? And the fifth question is, who can you throw under the bus to have some of these conversations with me? So let's start at the beginning. I've spoken too much already. How are you, James Yuille, qualified to talk to us about PPC?
Well, I think really you need to look back at the 30-odd years prior to me doing PPC, because I learnt cold calling and direct marketing and classified advertising and full-page magazine advertising, and practiced those skills over all those years prior to discovering the internet. Now, I built my first website in 1998 and optimized it for Alta Vista and grew a business from that. So I was already on the internet building websites commercially. And at that time, there was a tool available to us from a company called Overture, which was a keyword research tool. So we used to use that keyword research tool to find keywords for SEO for websites. Now, cutting a very, very long story short, and not implicating any commercial improprieties along the way, because there certainly were a few, but Google launched a program which was then called AdWords in Australia in, I think, late 2001, somewhere around there. And I'd heard about it, and I had a bit of a look at it. But I went to an internet marketing seminar that was held up on the Sunshine Coast, about an hour and a half's drive north from where I lived. And one of the guest speakers at that seminar was Perry Marshall, who at that time was already laying claim to being an AdWords guru. And I listened literally with bated breath and hung on every word he said. And I realized that at last, after all those years of waiting, that we finally had a tool available to us that gave us absolute empirical data. So we could see at a glance how many people searched for a certain keyword for a certain business. We could see very definitely which adverts worked in terms of the relative number of clicks they got compared with other adverts. And we could also track the actions that people took in terms of making contact with businesses once their click led to the website, because we could track the number of people that made telephone calls or the number of people that filled out inquiry forms on the website. So we had real numbers. Real numbers. So you could actually say to somebody, I'll give you a case study about this if you want. You can actually say to somebody, this is where your best market approach is. These are the keywords. These are the headlines. And you can take this stuff into the offline world and use it in practice and make quick and easy sales. Now, look, I'd spent 30 years in sales. I wrote a sales training manual about 25 years ago that I started to sell online when I first learned about building websites. And in that book, I teach people a really simple process for making sales. Now, you can, if you have an incoming lead, which is what Google Advertising generates for you, you've got a hot prospect. And if you have a hot prospect, it should be relatively easy to make a sale to them. So the objective of Google Advertising is really simple. It's put a message in front of those people who are interested in buying what you sell, persuade them to come to your website by means of a really attractive advert, and then using on-the-page sales skills to encourage them to take the action that you want. Now, back when I first started in this business, there was a long since defunct product called Site Builder, which is one of the first drag-and-drop web development tools. It was created by a guy called Ken Evoy. And I learned a really good lesson from Ken in that he said that before you build a web page, or in fact, before you write or create any marketing document, there's a really important decision you have to make. And that decision is, what do you want somebody to do as a result of reading, hearing this marketing message? Do you want them to subscribe to something? Do you want them to give you their name and email address? Do you want them to buy something? Do you want them to register for a course? Do you want them to phone you? What do you want them to do? So you have to begin with the end in mind, which is nothing new. But if you, let's just say something really simple and say you're a gas fitter, right? So people search for gas stoves. They search for inspections for gas compliance on marine vessels or whatever they might search for. So if you put an advert in front of people that says, hey, I can solve your problem, they come to your website. The single objective of that web page is to get you to inquire. And we track that and we monitor that. And the thing, just getting back to the conversation I heard from Perry Marshall all those years ago, he said, I want you to write down 3 words. And if you leave my seminar at this point and put these 3 words into practice, you'll succeed in dealing with Google. So, a room of, 150 people, all ears. And he said, Google, the word, relevance. So if you think about an advert for a gas fitter and you've got a leaking gas, or you want to replace your electric stove with a gas stove, and you do a search for replace electric stove with gas, you want an advert that says how to replace your electric stove with gas. We can do that for you. We've been licensed gas fitters for 30 years, and we'll come to you at a moment's notice to solve your gas problems. And you say, well, that sounds good. You click the advert. There's a page that talks about converting your electrical appliances to gas. There's some examples and stories of what they've done. And they're said to have a conversation with us, ring this number, or if it's after hours, fill this form, we'll ring you back in the morning. And you track that. And then you can see which keyword and which advert brought that prospect to the website, and you can train the client in how to convert that lead into a sale. And it's really extremely simple. but it isn't easy.
Okay,
It's
good.
incredibly complex to do it. And look, I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years, and I'm not kidding you when I say at least once a month I get an aha moment with the Google Ads. It's now called Google Ads, with the Google Ads interface. I think, where did that come from? When did that change that? Because it's a constantly evolving, ever-changing platform. The fundamental principles of it have been the same the whole way through. You tell Google you want to bid for a keyword, so you say to Google, I'm willing to pay $3 for somebody to click an advert for gas fitting, and Google compare what you're prepared to bid and the track record of your ads against the other people in that option, and they decide whereabouts on the page your advert sits. And there are lots and lots of tricks that will let you get your ad to the top of the page without necessarily being the highest bidder. So yeah, it's black magic in a way, if you like. But as far as Google wanted to take your money, um, Google are happy to take your money whether or not you're good at what you do or not. But if you are good at what you do, Google can make you a shitload of money. They really can. You can do incredibly well from Google Ads. And to give you an idea, one of the very, very first clients I ever got for PPC came as a referral through a BNI group that I was involved in Brisbane. And it was to a fledgling software company. And I taught the owner of that company how to sell his product. I wrote all the copy for his website. I wrote all the copy for his offline sales. I managed his PPC. And last year, that company, which came out of a basement of a house in Brisbane, that company sold for over $600 million.
Wow.
So Google can make you a lot of money. I've got a client who's a criminal lawyer. His speciality is getting people off drink and drug driving charges and helps them gain a work license so at least they can drive their car to go to work. He started advertising with me about 18 months ago. He was getting probably 15, maybe 20 leads a month. He's now getting 80, and he's employed 3 more full-time lawyers in the 18 months I've been working for him, and he tells me he's looking to employ another one very soon. So done right, this can make you truckloads of money. Now you imagine 80 leads a month, and his average sales about $2,500, so he doesn't convert all 80. But hell, even if he converted half of those, that's a truckload of money coming through his front door. So yeah, I'm kind of qualified to do this. I've done hundreds, maybe 1,000 campaigns. Truly, I have no idea, right?
Okay.
But a lot of them have made their owners a very, very significant amount of money and put their businesses in a point where they're not necessarily working in them full time, where their businesses are ready for sale.
Yep.
In fact, only last week, a client that I've been advertising for 5 years with a 15-year-old business, he's become a very good friend, he and his partner. And he tells me that apart from word of mouth referrals, the only marketing he does is through Google Ads. And his business has got to the point now where it's totally mechanized, completely automated, and he's ready for sale, so he can retire. And he's 50.
Good. Excellent. All right, good. So much that I want to talk about already. I want to talk about why PPC is so effective. Because if you accept that essentially, if you are proactively marketing, you are in the business of buying customers, then this PPC is the most perfect form of marketing that's ever existed, because it is literally a formula. You have this much budget, gets you this much clicks, gets you this much traffic, gets you this much conversion, gets you this much sales. So you can work it back very quickly to the cost of sales.
You can, very much so. Yes.
When you were talking about the actual numbers, you were talking in the past tense. I don't know if you were doing this deliberately or otherwise. And it seems to me like I'm getting a sense that I may be much more skeptical about Google than maybe you are. I don't know. But it seems to me that Google do muddy the waters. So I think originally, 20 years ago, I wasn't there. I came to the party maybe 2007, so maybe 15 years ago. The data was much more reliable than it seems to be now.
Oh, no, I wouldn't agree with you. I think we've got far more data now than we ever had. Yep. See, just to give you an example, one of the most important things to recognise about where this platform is going at the moment is that Google are actually deploying a massive amount of artificial intelligence to your campaign. I mean, don't kid yourself that Facebook know more about you than Google do, because they don't. See, Facebook only know your behavior on Facebook. Google know everything you search for, everything you've ever searched for, right? So Google know when you make a search for something, and actually I just wrote an article the other day about this, Google know whereabouts in the search cycle you are. So let's say that you decide you want to take a holiday. And I'll use Australia as an example because that's where I live. So you're in Australia and you want to go for a holiday and you don't know where. So you might do a search for great Australian holiday ideas and you'll find all kinds of stuff. You'll find train travel, you'll find adventure tours, you'll find all sorts of stuff. And you hover around that for a while and you and your partner discuss it and then you sort of say, well, I want to go somewhere in wintertime where it's warm. So you go to Queensland, where I live. And you say, okay, winter travel in Queensland. And you start to refine that search more specifically. And then you say, okay, we want to go to the Whitsundays. We want to go to Airlie Beach or Hamilton Island or somewhere in that region north of Mackay. So you now start to search for package trips to the Whitsundays or holidays from Hamilton Island. And Google know that your progression is now to the point where you're actually ready to get your credit card out and make a sale. So when you're smart at using Google Ads, you focus your money and your advertising on those people who are at the sharp end of the sale. It's classic direct marketing because you're chasing proven demand, right? There's no point putting an advert in front of Australian holiday ideas. You're so far away from the sale that unless you actually engage in a remarketing campaign and keep putting ads in front of people time and time and time and time again, and even if you do that, you're going to miss the mark about what they really want. I just want to be there when they say, I want to go to the Whitsundays, and I'm going to stick an advert that says, here I am, click my ad, book with me, right? So Google are aware of this, of your search history. So when we start building a PPC campaign, one of the most important things that we need is some form of conversion tracking on the website, which is typically filling out a form, right, or making a phone call. So that gives you the ability to change your bidding structure as you develop a success profile with your adverts. So you start your bidding, and this is really high-level Google advertising smarts, right? This is truly what I'm about to tell you here is gold, really. Because if you start your campaign on the bidding setting maximize conversions, and you don't have any methodology of tracking conversions, Google can't apply its artificial intelligence, so they'll just take your money. So the trick is to start your bidding strategy on maximize clicks. You have your campaign set up with conversions that track back to you ideally through analytics, which tracks the particular money-making actions like booking, payments, inquiries, etc. When Google see a history of the kind of search that creates those conversions, you can then change your campaign bidding structure to what's called maximize conversions. So Google will then limit the number of times your ads show and will show them in front of people similar to those who've had prior conversion history from your adverts. Now, once you've got that happening and you can get some idea of what a conversion is costing you in terms of the number of clicks and cost per click it takes you to get that conversion. And for argument's sake, your average might be $60, right, across a range of keywords. So you say to Google, I want you to get these conversions for me at below $65. So Google would then focus all of its intelligence to get those conversions for you at under $65. Now, your challenge is that there's a competitor who's saying, I'm willing to pay up to $75 for conversions. You know, you're potentially in a battle with that person, so it takes a bit of fiddling with. And you've got to keep your eye on the ball to see what's happening. But if once you master this,
sorry, 1 second.
you can, and that's all good. So back to what I was saying, if you once you get a handle on what your cost per conversion is, you can scale your campaign almost as far as you want to go. And you can get to the point even where you say to Google, I'm willing to, you can tailor this, right? So once you have an understanding of what your conversion cost is, you can scale your campaign. You can grow it geographically. You can really blow it up and create some incredible results. But the trick is that if you're not tracking conversions, you're literally you're playing into Google's hands. You also play into Google's hands if you don't use the professional version of Google Ads. So if you've got a Google business account and you click the button that says advertising, you're playing with a platform that used to be called AdWords Express, that is a guaranteed, absolutely guaranteed no-brainer way to pay Google thousands of dollars without getting a result because the platform simply doesn't work. So you've got to use the professional version. And seriously, the game is so complex today. And I see this regularly where people come to me and say, Google Ads doesn't work. And I say, well, yes, it does. You just don't know how to make it do that. And I look at their campaigns and see just a litany of errors that amateurs make that just allow Google to put their hand in their wallet and take the credit card, But done right, providing there's demand. And the key to Google Ads is there must be proven demand because otherwise you're gambling, right? There has to be surge. And look, anybody who creates a business where there isn't proven ongoing demand is setting themselves up for failure, right? There has to be demand.
Yes. Okay, good, man. I'm going to have to deal with this issue. I'll be back in a second.
Sure.
Come on, dude.
I'll just quietly talk to myself.
Bye-bye, James.
Bye-bye. Isn't it awesome when you work from home and you've got stuff like that happening in your life? It's absolutely fantastic, Yeah. So this is really interesting, actually. It's the first time I've done this interview format. Not the first time I've done a podcast, but where the parameters and boundaries have been so loose to allow me to take this subject where I really want to go. So really, what we do is that we add value to businesses by providing them with a mechanized, predictable lead generation model that can be applied to any business where there's proven demand and where the product or service has got some reasonable value. And when I talk about reasonable value, what I'm really saying is that there's no point in spending money on Google advertising if you have a product that sells for under, I don't know, maybe $300 or $400. If it doesn't have margin, good margin, or a chance for an upsell or resell, truly you're wasting your time. So whatever you sell has got to have proven demand, and it's got to have some value, because otherwise you haven't got the budget to pay for your clicks. I've just been continuing without you.
Bless you. Okay, good. Right. So there's some things I want to clear up. Let me put the fan on. You turn the fan on. So you say, which I 100% agree with you, Google knows far more about you than Facebook. Because Google knows your search history. But more than your search history, Google knows your internet behavior. Because, of course, there's Google Analytics in all of the websites. So not only does it know your search history.
There should be.
90% of websites probably have Google Analytics. So not only do they know your search behavior, they know your browsing behavior. They know what you click on, how long you spend places, all the links that you click on in between. So they know everything about your time on the internet. They also know where you are, of course, because of Google Maps. And they also know what you're saying to people in your emails because of Gmail. So they know what you're talking to your mum about, or, all of this stuff. So the only thing that Google haven't successfully done is put together a social media. They've tried, but they haven't quite managed it. So that's the thing about that. So Google really does know. Now, the other thing about that makes this the perfect form of marketing is the targeting and the timing are done for you, essentially. Because what happens in PPC is that the prospective buyer decides what they're interested in and when they're most interested in it, of course, and that's when they do the search. So these things kind of layered up make this the most perfect form of marketing for me. There are some caveats, like you were just saying. There has to be demand. They have to be using these search terms. If you're trying to sell something that no one's looking for, then it can't work. The other caveat...
But you shouldn't even be in business if you're selling something nobody's looking for.
But they are, James. They are.
I know. I see it month in and month out, and I've seen it for 30 years, right?
Yes. So, okay, good. So we are in agreement. Good. So the caveats are they have to be using those keywords. So people have to be using those keywords. And the other caveat is that it has to be viable. So if you are doing this formula, this amount of budget, this amount of clicks, this amount of things, this amount of conversions, this amount of sales, then there has to be margin in that sale price to cover the cost per click.
I was just covering that actually while you were offline for a second.
Can't believe you just carried on without me.
Oh, that's all right. Why wouldn't I? I'm just going to sit here looking gormless now.
Okay, well, I would have edited it.
We have a basic rule of thumb that what your sales got to be worth, and this is in Australian dollars, right?
Right.
It's got to be worth at least $300, so probably 150 quid sterling or 250 US.
Yep.
And it has to have two of the following three things. One, a very high GP. So if you're selling something virtual where your delivery cost is virtually nothing, you've got high margin. Two, and we're really looking at business to business or business to consumer stuff here. It's got to have a high chance of a repeat sale. or a high chance of an upsell. So repeat sell, for instance, could be, say, a bookkeeper, right? So a bookkeeper might charge $100 a month to do the books for a small business. But the average bookkeeper keeps a client for several years. So if you consider a lifetime value of 36 months, that sale is worth $3,600. And if the other option is a chance of an upsell, so if you're a pest inspector, for instance, a termite inspector, and you come to a house and do a termite inspection for $200, $300, in Australia, at least, there's a 1 in 3 chance that the house has got termites, because that's the rate of termite infestation in this country. So you have a very good chance that you're going to find termites, which means that you have an upsell of a $2,000, $3,000 or $4,000 termite barrier, right?
Yeah.
So you see, that meets the formula. If you're a plumber or a gas fitter, the average plumbing job or gas fitting job these days is rarely under $300. And once you've sold that customer, the chances are you're going to get repeat business from them over the years. You're going to get referrals to the neighbor, the mother, the sister, the woman across the road, the grandma, whatever. So the business goes on and on and on. And as you said, if you understand the cost of client acquisition against the lifetime value of a client, it's a really simple equation. Is my product viable or not? And if it isn't, we won't take the client on, period. End story. Full stop.
Okay, but there are so many people who are in business who haven't made that equation. They don't understand that there is a cost of sales. They think it's free. And the cost of sales across industries is in excess of 30%. So a third of your turnover is your cost of sales. So people are out there not having done these calculations. They're selling at a 20% margin and losing 10% every time they sell something. They're selling themselves out of business. So I'm 100% with you there. This is what makes this the perfect marketing method. You know, there is nothing that has ever competed this. Like, you are putting your message in front of the person who is interested at the time that they are most interested. And you're only paying if they actually click. You know, so if they don't fancy what you're offering, if they don't fancy your brand or whatever it is, then it doesn't cost you anything at all. This is what makes it the perfect method of marketing.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
What detracts from that is Google, because I do want to have this conversation, because Google are muddying the waters. They are obfuscating this. And I can give you two really good, transparent, quite obvious ways that they're doing this. The first is, if you're not actually running campaigns, you don't get the actual search volumes, you get estimations. So when you do your keyword research in Google Ads, if you're not running campaigns, it will tell you that there are between 10 and 100 searches, or between 100 and 1,000, or between 1,000 and 10,000, and so on. So that's one way I think that Google are obfuscating this, muddying the waters. Another way that they
if I can just comment at that point.
Yes.
I don't pay any attention to those figures whatsoever. The keyword has either been searched previously or it hasn't. And that's all I care about. I don't take, and never have, taken those budget figures into consideration, because the one key thing that you miss there is that those figures are given on the premises of an exact match search, right?
Right.
And most times using exact matching doesn't work, because the search is so varied, even around the same topic. There may be 50 or 60 search terms around one particular thing. Take, for instance, a job we're doing at the moment. Client sells custom-made trucks with huge water tanks on the back that are used on mining and civil construction sites to dampen the dust. Right? Now, these things cost a very significant amount of money, and they're called water trucks. And they use this to say essentially on mining and civil engineering sites like roadworks, there's at least 50 different search terms around that one thing. And I don't care what the search volume is. I only care about the ones that convert. That's, to me, the only thing that matters. The only one thing that matters is what converts. And I don't care if it's a low performing keyword or not. If it converts, that's where the focus is.
Okay, good. So my next point then is less valid, because my next point is that those figures that they offer, even if you are running campaigns, when they get to be much more specific, are a long way out in my experience. Even if you throw the budget of the United States military at this thing, you won't get the number of, and get 100% click-through rate, you won't get anything like the number of searches that they are. Like, sometimes it'll be way higher, sometimes it'll be way lower. That's the second thing.
Yeah.
The third thing that you get on that page is an estimated bid, like top of page bid, etc., etc. And I've got a whole host of issues with this, because Google in this instance are the auctioneer, but they're also dictating the bids. So they're suggesting the bids. So what do I want to do?
Well, again, I don't pay any attention to those either.
Okay, good. All right. So we're going to have to address all these things. That's okay. Now, so the other thing that Google took away about 2 years ago was it used to give you an average rank in your right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you about all my issues, and then I'm going to tell you about how I've addressed it, and then you're going to tell me if that's right or if it's wrong,
Sure.
or whatever it
Sure.
is.
Sure.
So they used to give you an average position, so an average ranking position. So you could say, okay, this month I averaged position 1.2. I'm going to up it by 5%, see if that gets me to average 0.1. They took that away. So the very thing that you are bidding for, i.e. the position, you don't even get to know now what position you're in. So that's another issue for me.
Because your position's irrelevant, right?
Why is it? How is it irrelevant?
Well, there's functionality called Auction Insights that shows where you are in comparison with your competitors. And there's also numerous tools you can use in the customized columns functionality that will give you very, very similar range of information. But at the end of the day, there's several things that people think are important that aren't. One is cost per click. One is your maximum bid price, because there's only one criteria that matters, what it costs you to get a lead. Nothing else matters. Nothing. Because it's all about getting leads. That's all you focus on. It's all we focus on. And look, we do this, I've been doing this for 20 years, and that's the key focus is, what does it cost my client to get a lead? It's all that matters. If the lead cost is viable, it doesn't matter where your ad is on the page. Your ad's working. And look, there's way more things you can do to get your ad at the top of the page. Don't worry about bid. For instance, if you've got a good conversion rate and you've got your site linking extensions and you've got all the other extensions built out, Google's quality score ranking will push you higher up the page than your competitors, and you may well not be paying anywhere near what they are. So here's trick number 2. Build out your site link extensions. Build out every extension you possibly can. Make sure that your keywords are relevant. Your ad will appear at the top of the page, period. And enable the quality score setting in your columns. And you've got to look for a quality score above 6. Because if it isn't above 6, your ad isn't working properly. And quality score comes from the relevance between your keyword, your advert, and your destination page, plus whether or not you've got all the extensions and everything else you can do to optimize your campaign build out. Now, to see a campaign that averages above 8 is quite uncommon. And I've got campaigns running successfully with a quality score of 5, 6, and 7, right? It's all about conversions. If you can get conversions for in position 3, what does it matter? At the end of the day, it's not where you are on the page, it's how the consumer responds to your advert and your offer, right? And
Okay.
if you get more work than you can cope with, what does it matter?
Okay. So because I am hugely skeptical of Google, because my experience of running campaigns is such that I don't have much trust left for Google. That's my issue, and you can tell me I don't have anything like your experience, obviously. So I'm happy for you to tell me I'm wrong, but I don't trust Google for a second. And so the why it matters is because we're missing huge parts of the story. We've got the original story, this is how much we spent, and we've got the outcome, this is how much it cost us to generate a lead. But surely in the middle is what we should be driving and influencing to make sure that we are getting as much value as possible. So even when I say these words, I'm thinking, well, maybe what you're saying is better. As long as you are getting value, that should be enough. And I'm interested in getting as much value as possible. So I'm always interested to turn the screw harder to get more and more value. And I think the reason
Yeah,
I've ended up,
I get you. I understand what you're saying.
yeah,
See, one of the things that Google want agencies to do, we have been for many, many years Google Premier Partners. Now we relinquished that recently because one of the criteria to be a Google Premier Partner is that you are required to encourage your clients to spend more and more and more and more. And we don't want to do that. Our objective is to maximize the value from a given budget, right? So, and there are many, many other ways than worrying about your bid cost to maximize the outcome. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is ignoring a tab called search terms. So when you're in your ads campaign dashboard, there's a major menu called keywords. Underneath that, there are 3 submenus. One is search keywords, which is the terms you're bidding on. And you've got to get the match set right for a start. That's a whole nother story. There's negative keywords, and then there's search terms. So search terms is what people have actually searched. So you can see what they've searched to trigger your adverts. Now, if you're getting clicks for terms that aren't relevant, you've got to add those terms to your negative keyword list. And even more important than the list of terms you bid on is your negative keyword list. Now, I can tell you that I did a campaign some years ago for a funeral home, a very successful, large local business to where I live. In that campaign, in the very early days, I realized that a lot of the search they'd had previously that created massive numbers of impressions and irrelevant clicks were search for death notices in the local newspapers or death notices online so that people would find out where somebody's funeral was. So we found a list of every common Christian name in English, French, German, Spanish, and Italian, and every common English surname, and added a whole lot to the negative keyword list. There were 7,000 negative keywords in that campaign, but it meant that ads were never shown for funeral date for Mary Thompson, right? So making sure that you regularly add irrelevant search terms to your negative keyword list achieves several things, one of which is it cuts down the number of irrelevant impressions, therefore it increases your click-through rate, which Google like because they can see relevance. It improves your quality score and improves the likelihood if you're using artificial intelligence to get a conversion. You know, some campaigns run successfully with 8 keywords, right? Because those are the ones that convert. And if you constantly spend time, and look, we can spend 2 hours or more a month per account, checking and adding things to the keyword list, and do very little else to the campaign, and it's improved its efficiency and its outcomes on a month-to-month basis. So you've got to know how to do it, because there's tricks and secrets behind that as well. And, things that are proprietary that we're not going to share unless you're a client, But I mean, if you, and I'm talking about campaigns that we have that are running regularly at 6, 7, 10, 11, 12% click-through rate with probably 90% effectiveness in terms of keyword relevance. Right? Now, it doesn't happen overnight. It can take 3 to 6 months to get a campaign to that level. But the average click-through rate across all search campaigns on Google is under 1.5%. We wouldn't have a single campaign, not a single account that runs at that level. Our objective is to have every campaign clicking efficiently at least 5%. And I've got stuff I could show you now. I've got stuff clicking at 15, 16, 18, 20%. Right? Now you've got a really high chance of conversion if you're only showing the ads to relevant search. Right?
Yeah. Okay, good. So you and I have a very different approach to this. I would say almost diametrically opposed approach
It
to this.
seems so.
But
Yeah.
because I've had too many of those conversations where I've had to phone a client and say, look, your budget's gone and we've not had any result, because Google is really good at taking your money. It really is. And I think it really wants to. And the evidence I have for that is if you phone Google and say, oh, my AdWords aren't quite working, then their recommendation will be more keywords, more
Of course.
geographies, more
Of
budget.
course. Of
It's
course.
never
Of
that
course.
efficiency. So the way I
Look,
do
we
this and the way I teach this is about exact match. This is the way I do it. And so what I'm saying to people is they should do their keyword research. They should take out anything that has no intent. So for example, I don't know, buy tennis shoes on Tuesday in Brisbane, for example, is great intent for me. So then what I do is I will have typically one keyword per campaign, because obviously you can have tens of campaigns, so that it is exact match. So that when they put in that exact, it wouldn't be that necessarily. It might be buy a red BMW 3 Series or whatever. But when they see that that is the exact keyword that they search for, when they see that keyword 3 or 4 times in the ad, and that ad is positioned in first place, then like you, I mean, I've had click-through rates of 40% because this is exactly the thing that they are looking for. Now, the beauty of this is when they click, they go to a landing page, which is also littered with that exact keyword
Oh,
and that
yes. Well,
exact picture
that's crucial.
on each campaign.
That's crucially important. That's
Yes,
crucially important. Having having a destination page that's highly relevant to your search is crucially important. Crucially.
yes.
But
And the
look,
point of this is,
we've played with every.
yes.
Sorry, I'm interrupting you. Go on.
Oh, sorry, I'll just finish because I'm much more interested in what you're saying than what I'm saying because I know what I'm saying. The point of this, I say to people like pay-per-click advertising or buying through pay-per-click should be like slipping on ice or falling through a trap door. All you really need to do is remove the barriers, and there's no reason for those sales not to happen, because
Mm.
if you are targeting specifically those keywords with intent, obviously there's some journey to go on. They might need to speak to a salesperson, something might need to happen. But this is my approach. But it's come about because I really don't trust Google. Because I really don't trust Google when it comes to spending money on Google Ads.
I do. See, that's the key difference. I do
Yeah,
because I
yeah. I mean,
understand.
that's how we're
I
opposed.
I, I, understand, I understand. I understand the depth of what makes this beast work. Right.
Okay,
We we only use exact match when there's a very specific reason not to use phrase match. Right.
okay.
nearly everything we do uses phrase match. I'm not a subscriber to one keyword per ad group, not at all, because
I'm saying
typically
per campaign.
well, an ad group is a subset of a campaign,
Yes, yes.
right? So a campaign is comprised of several different ad groups,
Yeah.
right? So single keyword ad groups are just something we've never focused on, because there may be 10 or 15 or 20 different ways to express buy red 3 Series BMW,
Yeah.
right? And I want to make sure I capture the whole bloody lot. I don't want to miss 19 of them because I'm only bidding for one of them.
Yes.
And we find that works because, the data will tell you which keywords work, and you slowly eliminate the ones that don't. And you may end up in a situation, for instance, it takes us, and we time how much time we spend setting up a Google campaign, right? It takes us on average, 15 hours to research and set up a campaign from scratch. That's all done manually. We could go and use tools like Speed PPC. No. We take the time and the effort to get it right from the word go. And the intent is to have that client make money within days of the campaign going live. I took over a campaign for a company that does electrical work and air conditioning early last year, probably about February last year. They were advertising very badly. They were getting probably 4 or 5 leads a week. They're now getting 5 to 6 a day. And all we did was completely research the business from the ground up. We had to make some changes to the website to increase the relevancy of certain searches to make sure that the pages were valid. Those leads are costing them now about $30. So if you go to somebody who sells a ducted air conditioning system for $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 or more, and say, how would you like leads dropped in your inbox every day at $30 or $40 each? They're going to queue to get that. And that's what we deliver.
Yeah. So what we have in common is, we're coming at this from both ends. It's the same cake. We're coming at it from both ends. What I'm doing is I'm being very specific on the way in, whereas you're being more general on the way in to get to the specifics. So you're, and you're, of course, you're 100% right. The key message when I teach PPC is put in the hard yards, because it's not the way people approach PPC. So I think I've often thought it'd be a really good business to go into the PPC consultancy business and just phone the top 10 advertisers in diamond rings, I don't know, weddings, whatever, because I've never looked at a campaign that you can't cut the spend in half and triple or quadruple the return by doing what we're both talking about in different ways, which is putting in the hard yards. Because Google gives you 800 recommended keywords. People copy and paste those into their campaigns. They've got no clue which of those keywords are relevant or are being clicked or are being whatever. And then they phone Google and they say this isn't working. And Google says, well, spend some more money, So that's...
But if you ring Google, here's another failure. If you ring Google, you get totally inexperienced people.
Yes.
The turnover of staff at Google is horrendous. It is not a nice place to work, right?
Yeah.
The turnover is huge. They're reading from scripts, and the intent is very simple: increase the client spend. Full stop. Yep. Now, look, we've got campaigns that we've run for clients for years on the same budget. Because our job is to screw it and screw it and screw it and screw it and screw it down tighter and tighter and tighter every month to maximize the return from the budget.
Yes.
seriously, the only time we increase the client's budget is we go to the client and say, we've screwed everything we can out of this. Do you want more? Yes or no?
Yes.
And when they say yes, we say, okay, well, let's look at what happens if we increase the budget, right? But increasing the budget is not the objective. You've got to get squeeze every last lead you can out of that existing budget before you go begging the client for more money, right?
Yes. Yeah, so at that point, it's a really simple conversation. It's like, we're getting you great value. Do you want more of this value? You know, that makes
Yeah,
perfect sense to me.
yeah, very much so.
Yeah, I can't believe. So, are you telling me it doesn't matter where my ad is ranked? Like, you're saying there's no difference between being ranked in first position or being ranked in third position? Because there must be, or
I don't
fourth
even.
position, or fifth, or seventh.
It's nothing I consider. It's nothing I consider. There's only one metric that matters. Can I reduce your cost per lead next month from what it cost this month? It's the only objective. It's the only thing that matters. It's the cost per conversion. And let's
I,
face it, most people don't know how to sell the bloody lead in the first place. So
yes.
if you also teach them how to sell, right? This is seriously only one metric, only one, cost per lead, and then their conversion rate from that lead. Nothing else matters. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And look, I'm a radical. I'm a radical in just about everything you do, right?
Okay.
I'm 70 years old next birthday, right? I'm as fit as you come. I don't drink much. I eat totally organic foods, right? I'm healthy. I'm alert. And I'm irreverent with so much around life because so much around life is totally trivial, right? I don't stress. I don't sweat the small stuff. I got one objective in business, and that's to improve my client result from month to month to month. It's the only objective I have. And if myself and my team are doing that, nothing else matters because I'm going to get paid. And if I get paid, I enjoy life, right?
Yep.
And it's taken me a lot of years to get to this point. You know, we started off with a full-blown web design, graphic design, copywriting studio, right? We did everything. Trust me, everything, right? We pared it down, we pared it down, we pared it down to what we do best. And at the end of the day, I'm an old-fashioned direct marketer, and I'm a specialist in generating leads for essentially in-demand businesses that fit basically three categories: trade services, so plumbing, air conditioning, swimming pool building, handyman, solar electric installations, anything like that, law, and allied health. And we have a few other oddballs as well. I mean, we have a client who sells whiteboards, and his biggest sale, you've got to believe this, because I've seen it in his accounting file, his biggest sale was $57,000. And when he asked the client who they were, they said Google. And he said, how did you find us? They said, we clicked an advert.
Good. Bless them. Okay. So the thing
So even
is,
Google click ads.
good. Well, yeah, this is the other thing that goes on is that nobody will admit to clicking on Google Ads, but somebody must because they're generating $28 billion a quarter or whatever it is. Okay, you're going to have to help
Yeah.
me a little bit here, James, because I'm still not resolved. I'm kind of seeing that the issue might be mine. For me, if I am bidding to place an ad in an order, that's what I'm buying. You know, I should get to know what order my ad is being shown in. Just tell me to shut up. I'm being an idiot. I'll move on if you like.
Just seriously, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay? It really doesn't matter. There's
But it
only
affects your
one
click-through
metric that
rate.
counts.
That's why it matters.
No, the click-through rates are relevant. Click-through rates are relevant.
Here's
What's
why
the
it
only
matters.
thing that's
How do I
relevant is the
know?
cost of conversion.
How do I know when to stop increasing my bids if I don't know where I am in that rank?
Well, you don't change the bid. You let the artificial intelligence work for you.
I don't trust it. This
Bid
is the
cost,
issue.
bid, bid cost is the least of your worries. Believe me.
Okay. God, I'd love to be you.
And look, it hasn't been an issue for 10 years, and certainly
Right.
not for the last 5. We don't pay any attention whatsoever. I mean, look, let's look at that a little bit more analytically. And if you start a campaign off on maximize clicks, you've got a budget of say $1,000 a month, and you set so $1,000 a month gives you $33 a day, right?
Yep.
And if you see that your click cost is $8, you realize you're only going to get 3 clicks a day or 4 clicks a day, right?
Yep.
Because 4 eighths are 32. Now, if you can make that work and you can get the client business for that, what does it matter? As long as you're getting the client the business, the click cost is not important. The only thing that matters is cost per conversion.
Okay. I've got
And
it.
look, I've worked on that theory for 15 years, and it hasn't let me down. The only
Okay,
time it
good.
lets me down is where, for some reason, we can't track conversions. So if you've got a website that's built with some silly GoDaddy template where you can't create a separate thank you page, or if you've got a campaign that uses a third-party booking engine where you can't put an analytics tracking code on a page, you've got to rely on button clicks along the way. Well, I'm sorry. What we do isn't going to work for you,
No.
right?
The most perfect thing isn't going to work for you. You're in trouble if you're not doing those things, however you're doing
Yeah,
your marketing.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Because if you can't track it, you can't measure it. If you can't measure it, you can't tune it.
Yep.
It's like ringing a mechanic saying, "What's wrong with my car? It's making a noise." And it turns out the water bottle in the door is rattling.
Yep. I've had that. Okay, good. So, what I want to say, the reason it matters is because it's okay for you and it might be okay for me because we've been knocked about by these systems for a period of
Yeah,
time and we have a
yeah,
sense about how they work. The reason it matters is because people who don't know how it works get into trouble. So, for example, this suggested bid thing. So, when you
yeah.
did get to know where to rank, and when I was running numbers of these campaigns, I would take an interest in what the suggested bid was and what it would cost me to get actually into first place because I was seeing those two things. I was seeing the average cost per click, and I was seeing the average position. And what I saw is that it was typically 20 or 30% lower than the Google suggested bid. So, so what's going on here? And I know the argument that's anti this, but what's going on here is that Google are running the auction, and they're the auctioneer, and they're the seller. So they're selling their own product through auction. So of course they're suggesting that people bid 20 or 30% more than is necessary to do that thing. If
Yeah, well,
everybody comes and takes their recommendation, then essentially what's happening is that the cost per click is getting inflated by 20 or 30% every day. And and people like you and I who are looking to drive
that's but that's
value
but,
for our
but that's
clients.
but that's not reality. That's not reality. Truly, that's not reality. And look, I've studied campaign after campaign after campaign,
Yeah,
and truly, we've got campaigns where we wouldn't have changed the bid in years, right?
yeah,
Because we don't pay attention to the bid. We make sure that the keywords are relevant. We make sure the search is relevant. We make sure that we've got conversion tracking. We establish a pattern with the client about what's acceptable. And we make sure that all of the site linking extensions and all of the other extensions are built out. Because today, more than anything, that will get you a better position, right?
right.
It's
But
look,
you don't know
please,
what that position is. You only know what the click-through rate is. So
I
the
don't, I
last thing.
don't, I don't care. I don't care what it is. If it's getting my client all the leads he wants within his budget, that's all I care about. Does it
Okay,
really
good.
matter? And if you think back to the classified adverts in newspapers, right? And you look for a plumber, there'd be 10 ads for a plumber. It didn't matter if you were number one. It made no difference whatsoever. It was the quality of the advert and your ability to answer the phone and to convert the sale that mattered. Position isn't everything, in the same way that content isn't everything. And people will come out and tell you that content is king. Well, I tell you that a king needs a queen, and the queen, who has far more moves than a king on the chessboard, the queen is speed. Because unless you have a really fast loading website, and I'm talking about a site that loads in 2 seconds or less, it doesn't matter how good your SEO is, it doesn't matter how good your ads are, you won't rank.
Right. So you think it's more to do, like quality score is more important to you than the actual ranking or the price per bid?
No.
No.
Quality score is only an indicator. Quality score is only an indication of whether your keywords, your ads, and your destination pages are in sync. And I've seen quality scores of 4 convert because the ad and the copy are compelling and the call to action is strong. Do you know, in one of the Google ads that we set, there's a question that says something like, Mary isn't getting enough conversions from the website. Should she increase her bid? Should she change her match types? Should she increase her budget? Or should she put a call to action on her sales page? And the answer is the fourth.
Yeah,
And
I
I can
would say
attest
so.
that. I told you about the guy who sells whiteboards.
Yeah.
When I first took him on, I said, you don't have your phone number at the bottom of the sales page with a phrase something like, if you don't see what you want or you haven't time, just call us and we'll help you. And he said, oh, my phone is at the top of the page. I don't need that. I said, fine, your call. You're missing out. You'll see the light. And I reminded him every month, and he said, I don't need it. Anyway, one day he rang me totally out of the blue, and he said, I censored, hate you. And I said, oh, really? That's a really nice way to call me at 9 o'clock in the morning. What have I done? And he said, well, we were a bit quiet last week, so I went through my website and I put a message at the bottom of every sales page that said, if you can't see exactly what you want, just call us. Here's the number. And he said, I finished that job on Saturday. This was about a Thursday. He said on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday this week, we had more calls every day than we used to get in a week previously.
Yes.
Nothing else changed. Nothing.
Yeah. I'm 100% with you. I mean, where you started is what I tell people. So the job of the ad isn't to sell the product, it's to get the click. And the job of the
Yes.
landing page isn't to sell the product necessarily, it's to get the next action, whatever that is. And then the job
Yes.
of the next action is, so it's always a process all the way through. So for me,
Yes.
it's about finessing every step in the process that will get you to the ultimate efficiency. I mean, you're making me
Yeah.
question
Yeah.
why I lost faith so badly in Google. And the answer is because they screwed. I got screwed a number of times. So, like, the next question is supposed to be, what is your recommendation for someone who's looking to get better with their ads? My recommendation would be that they call you. Don't go
Well,
mano a
hire a
mano with
professional.
Google. You will get slaughtered.
Hire a professional. It's no longer a game you can play your own. It just isn't. I mean, I won't say every day, but at least once a week I get to look at somebody else's campaign. Even campaigns set up by supposedly professional agencies. And it just breaks my heart to see the mistakes and the sheer loss of money
Yes.
that are created. I mean, a guy came to me yesterday. He sells a really specific training program, a unique trade skill. His top performing keyword in his campaign was unmatched, broad matched training courses.
Right.
Now, how many different kinds of training course could you imagine? You can train to be anything.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
his
yeah.
top keyword in terms of impressions was training courses.
And I've seen this also, and I've been recommended to do that by Google themselves, So it's like, I
You
know,
pay, listening to Google is like paying dickhead tax.
right.
And that's what we call it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we've been premier partners with Google for many years. As I said previously, they set parameters that we weren't willing to perform by, so we ignored that status, we've lost it. And I didn't want to be that agency that pushed clients to increase budget when it wasn't necessary. So I have no shame or guilt or remorse about losing that status. But one of the things that we do have is that we have the privilege of having very high level support within Google from some very, very clever people. But even then, we rarely take their advice because we know that what they generally recommend is rarely going to work. One of the things I want you to do at the moment, because of the artificial intelligence, is to add more broad match keywords to your campaigns and reduce correspondingly the number of phrase and exact matches. Every time we try that, the result goes backwards every single time. So we just don't do it. We just don't use broad match keywords. And if you're still using modified broad match, which is the plus signs, well, you're not doing yourself any favors because that doesn't work anymore. They're ignored. That concept's been made redundant.
Yeah, you see, what Google are doing, I think, in PPC is, and I still think this, is they're doing the very worst kind of sales and marketing. It's like they don't get what nobody gets or seems to get is that it's about the lifetime value of the customer. It's about
Of
delivering
course.
value. So what Google are doing in PPC, maybe, well, it's where they take their money, is they're doing what every shitty business does, which is a smash and grab operation, just to try and get as much money out of people as quickly as possible. That, it
Yeah.
seems to me, is what goes on with Google. So, I mean, where we're sharing the same message is put in the hard yards, because Google will take your money if you're not extraordinarily careful. I mean, if you're not religious and
Absolutely.
fanatical
Yeah.
about it, Google will take your money and you'll be out of business. And
Yeah.
the other issue is that this goes on too much in marketing nowadays. People are looking at the wrong metric. Like, you and I are disagreeing about whether specific metrics are useful or not. But I think we'll agree that the number of impressions isn't the most exciting metric. It's maybe the least exciting metric. So, and this comes to this gross inefficiency narrative that runs throughout marketing, which is you have to make the whole world aware of what it is that you're doing. You
I
get this
know.
funnel type stuff. So you have to make the whole world aware. Then some people might, and then you trickle down. You get a small number of clients out of the end of it. So,
Look, let me give you an example that supports that. I won't go into the industry because it's very niche, but
okay,
I've got one client that advertises his services to 20 postcodes in Sydney,
yep,
20 only. The people have to be in the top 20% of income earners. They have to be um, male in the
okay,
top 20% of income earners, and it's nothing to do with sex, right?
right, okay. I mean,
But
I
and he
was
only
trying to,
advertises And he only advertises to them if they're between the age of 45 and 64.
Okay. It's nothing to do
I
with
did a
sex. Am I
campaign.
supposed to be guessing?
No, no, I'm not going to tell you however accurate you are. But it's a
It,
very legitimate service. I've got
right.
another client. Take family law, right? So if you're advertising family law, divorce, separation, all that stuff, the appeal to the motivator for a woman between the age of 25 and 44, or even between 25 and 34, in a different income bracket, is different to the motivation of a woman who's 45 plus and whose kids are off her hands. It's a different motivation if they're in a higher income bracket or a lower income bracket. And it's a differential for a guy if he owns a business or if he has a job. So, you've got to take into consideration the thought process and the actual situation that your searcher is in order to put the right ad in front of them and the right message and take them to the right page on the website. This particular family lawyer had something like 16 different pages on her website appealing to different age groups, different income brackets, and different genders about the perils of divorce.
Okay, good. Right. So that sounds like the sort of thing that I would motivate. How is she discerning the incomes or the ages or those kinds? It doesn't matter. You see, that's what I
Well,
would say.
you can set them in your Google Ads campaign.
Can you?
Yeah,
Ah,
look
okay.
for a tab called Audiences.
Okay. And there you can specify the audiences.
Yes, I mean if you want to sell something to plumbers, I can set up a campaign that will only target plumbers. Now I'm not going to tell you how, but I do it.
Good. Okay. So what am I thinking? Like, I'm finding this really funny now, and you're very serious. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, I can be equally flippant and
Okay.
funny.
So what did I
But
want
I
to
mean,
say?
this is
I don't.
I mean, this is serious stuff, right?
Yeah, it is serious stuff. Yeah, but I find people find it easier to absorb stuff if it's funny. I don't know. I think I'm embarrassed. Maybe I'm embarrassed. Okay, so the thing is, I think where we agree is that what we're both saying is if you're going to be dancing with Google, you have to be extraordinarily cute to get value from that relationship. I
You've
think
got to
that's
be rat cunning. You've got to be rat cunning.
good.
That's the secret.
Now we've got a headline for this video. Because I think that's true. Because Google makes billions of dollars. Nobody makes billions of dollars by being nice, you know. That's my
Oh, true.
experience. Sorry?
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
So, okay, so that's where we agree. Right, so where are we with the questions? Question number your recommendation for people if they want to get better at ads. We've covered that one.
Hire a professional
Yeah.
and spend your time doing what you're good at, which is selling your product and systemizing your business so you don't have to worry about all the other stuff. Hire a professional because if you need expensive dealing with a professional, try dealing with an amateur instead.
Yeah, but I don't even think that is good enough because, like you say, you've seen campaigns that are run by professionals. They're also not doing a great job. You know, they're not putting in the hard yards, which is
Oh, well, one of the reasons, well, there's several reasons for that. One of them is that there are people who don't live in the area that your advertising is running, so they don't understand the geography, they don't understand necessarily the language nuances, they don't understand the geographics and demographics. That's one. Two, they're typically of an age where they've never had to have their own skin in the game, so they don't actually consider the fact that that 1,000 or 2,000 bucks is actually coming out of somebody's pocket who bleeds if it doesn't work, right?
yeah.
Three is they've got little or no sales, marketing, or business experience. And number four, they're not taught by somebody who has all those skills.
And I think even more simply than that, people are lazy and stupid?
Well,
I mean, I'm not saying
lazy, I think, yes.
lazy. I think, well, you know, okay, so maybe that's harsh. I don't know, but if you are either of those things, Google is going to take you for a lot of money. You're not going to, and the sales and marketing industry is going to take you for a lot of money. And I think it's
Yes.
interesting what you're saying is I also started on the phone, having digging people out, having conversations, getting people's attention. And I think that experience informs the way I deliver a service to my customer because I know what I'm doing now is much easier than certainly much more time efficient than what I used to do. So I value it more. And I think there's a real danger
Well,
in,
in,
yeah,
in my first year in selling, I cold called, physically visited every single business house in the city of Adelaide.
yes. And you
Cold
learn
call.
something from that experience, don't you?
Yes, I learned a lot. And the
Yes.
thing was to very quickly establish where there was a problem in that business that I could solve with my products. So I learned to say, I would walk into an office and I'd say, look, I'm sorry if I'm wasting your time. I just want to know, do you have this problem in your business? Yes or no? And if you do, who would I talk to about a fix for that problem? And they'd give me a name, or they'd say, no, we don't have that problem. If they didn't have the problem, I didn't ring. And if they had that problem, I'd ring them up and say, hey, John, it's James you're calling. I know you don't know me, but I believe you have this problem in your business. Is that right? Yes. If I could fix that for you, would you give me 15 minutes of your time to show you how? And if they
Yes.
said yes, I made an appointment, and my conversion rate was 1 in 3. And that year, as a rookie salesman in a multinational company in the smallest office in the country at the time, and in a city that was in the middle of a recession, I topped sales figures in that company in Australia. So I
Good.
quit at the end of the year because I couldn't do any better.
Okay,
And
good.
I learned a very important lesson from my late father, who's a doctor. I asked him once what makes a good doctor, and he said, prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. In other words, don't pitch a solution unless there's a problem to pitch to. I mean, a doctor doesn't go out and say, I'm going to sell 4 appendectomies today.
No, they don't.
They take each patient as they come, listen to the situation, and diagnose a solution. And that's what salespeople should do. And that's what Google Adverts does. It puts your proposal in front of somebody's unresolved problem.
At exactly the time they want to do something about it.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it is perfect marketing. It is for
Mm.
me. It is perfect marketing. It is only tainted by the fact that it's run by Google, and Google are clearly much
Well, no,
better at taking.
it isn't run by Google. It's a platform provided by Google that
Yes,
you run for your client.
yeah,
And if you don't let Google's recommendations interfere with you, if you don't set automatically accept recommendations, and if you use street smart marketing skills and rat cunning, you can make ads work for you, providing there is demand for the product. Now, we haven't touched YouTube. We haven't touched the display network. We've purely talked about search marketing. And there are places where the other two come into play. All we've talked about is that 10% of the search that is what we call in market now, because that's where the money's made.
yes.
No point talking about somebody buying a car if they bought one last week.
No. So, are you also busy with YouTube ads and display ads, or not?
Yeah.
No.
No, I'm not greatly fussed about YouTube because most of what you do on YouTube is awareness. We're not into awareness. We're a direct marketing agency. We
Yep.
do use display when it's appropriate, and there are some campaigns that that do work on display. But where we use display to its greatest effect is in remarketing.
Yes.
Right? So if you miss them the first time round, and look, there are people who want you to put your clients into an email funnel. I hate them.
Yeah.
Right? Far more effective just to keep showing your adverts as they search the net. And I'll give you a classic example of that. My wife and I were traveling interstate, and we were due for a driver change, and we were about probably 15 minutes short of where we were having our planned driver change. She was driving. And she made a comment to me. She said, it was coming into summer. She said, I need a new pair of yoga pants. So what's wrong with the one you've got? The ones you've got? I said, they're too long and they're too hot. And she said, I just haven't been able to find any. And I said, well, have you checked out Lululemon? And she said no. So I brought Lululemon up on my phone so that over lunch she could have a look at the yoga pants. Now, I didn't wear yoga pants. I saw Lululemon adverts on my phone for 6 months after that. So they remarketed to me.
Yes.
Now, there's certain things you can't remarket. You can't remarket finance. You can't remarket family law. But there are an awful lot of things you can. Right? And we
Yeah.
had a client who was doing interior design for cafes, restaurants, bars, and clubs. And we put a remarketing campaign in place for her. And she had a call one day from a woman who said, I was on your website about 3 months ago, but I wasn't ready to buy. And I keep seeing your adverts, and I want you to talk to me about refitting a cafe. What the girl didn't announce is that she was the property manager for a retail chain of coffee shops, a franchise chain, that had 25 stores. So this woman tended to refit the company store. Job was about $250,000. She got 25 jobs off that over the next 5 years. That first ad click cost about $3, and the remarketing click cost 40 cents. Now, there's no way that she would have subscribed to an email, 147 things you didn't know about shop footing but should. But there's another myth. You do not need an email campaign to make ads work.
No. I mean, my thing is integrated marketer. My thing is that your mission as a marketer is to test all of these things, identify where the best value is, invest all of your time, energy, money in the most effective returns. And there's very few. I take issue with people who are like, do this one form of marketing that will transform your business. If it's, although I've learned the error of my ways, there's two ways that only two things, two forms of marketing that will support your business completely on their own. That's PPC advertising and actually YouTube advertising. So somebody I interviewed does that and does an unbelievable job of that, to the point where he funds the ads and the creative and only is paid on return. So yeah, so those two things, I think, but because basically you're in the same space. YouTube is a search engine. In the same way that people search to find solutions to their problems on Google, they search to find solutions to their problems on YouTube. Okay, so you've told us throughout, I think congratulations. I'm happy to confirm that you are perfectly qualified to talk to us about PPC advertising.
Shoot. What? The guy that sold his business for 600 million would say that too.
Yes, good.
And he also told me that his business would have been stillborn if he hadn't hired me. So that was pretty cool.
That's really cool. When you can have that kind of result, that's really cool. Okay, so you've littered throughout who you work with and how you help them. So that's cool. You've given us your recommendation for anyone who's looking to get into this. So that brings us to question number 4. What should people read? What do you recommend people read?
Anything that challenges the norm.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, and so the final question then is, who can you throw under the bus? Who do you think might enjoy or maybe just endure to have one of these conversations with me? How has it been for you, James?
Oh, it's been fun. Look, I mean, if if you told me tonight, and it's 8 p.m. here in Australia right now, if you told me that tomorrow morning I have to deliver a 3-day workshop on sales and marketing, I'd just say to you, what time do you want me there and how many people are in the audience? Because it wouldn't faze me. I'd just go do it.
Cool. Yeah, I feel like that as well. I feel like it's like driving. There's a point where, it just comes naturally. It's just what you do, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So who would I throw under the bus? Look, I guess it depends what your audience wants to listen to. You mentioned to me about copywriters. Well, I could certainly bring you a couple of Class A copywriters. I could bring you a guy who's an absolute master at using artificial intelligence in your marketing. And he is, he's a silver-haired bodgy like me, but not quite as old, but way more cynical and probably far more factual than I am. I could bring you a guy who could tell you whether your book's worth publishing and how to make a squillion bucks out of publishing a book. I could bring you a guy who is an absolute master at getting high-level audio, written, and video testimonials for social marketing. There's probably 4 people that you haven't probably come across before. So you tell me which ones you want, and I'll tee them up for you.
Well, why don't you tee them all up for me? Because I'm interested in all of it. I'm interested in.
Okay.
I'm just interested in making it available. So I haven't got to the point where I'm clipping these things up yet because I don't feel like I'm qualified to know what the value is that people should be taking out of the conversation. So.
Yeah.
So please, if you could team me up with all of them, I'd be really excited to have those conversations.
Easy. They're all trusted colleagues.
Fantastic. So you could send like a little bit like Jamie did. Maybe you could send a LinkedIn message and invite me.
I'll just call them up and say there's a podcast. You'd be stupid not to play with. I'll link you up. Do you want to have a crack?
That sounds perfect. That sounds really perfect.
Well, I mean but isn't that all you have to say? Right? Fear of loss is a podcast you need to hook up with.
Yes.
Right? Do you want to play or not?
Yeah.
I mean, that's problem solving at its best, isn't it? It's a real direct sales approach.
Yeah.
And it's a yes or no answer, and it's all done. It's one sentence. Do you want to play? Yes or no? Okay, next.
Yes. Okay, 100%. If you can do that, if you can get these 4 people to speak to me, then I will believe your process forever. Sounds a little bit Australian to me.
Oh, well, we're fairly forthright people here,
You are fairly forthright people for sure. James, I've thoroughly enjoyed this. Thank you so much. I mean, it's really interesting. I hope I haven't been too challenging, but I'm just interested. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I get that. And look, at the end of the day, there's an old saying that a lot of roads lead to Rome, which means there's a lot of different ways to get there. And I'm not saying mine's the only way, but what I am saying is that over 20 years, I built a system that works. And my business is fully systemized. Like every single step of the way is templated and bookmarked so that I can make sure that irrespective of which of my staff is doing the work, I know that the job's been done completely.
Yes.
And to our method, right?
Yeah.
And that's cost me a lot of time and a lot of money to build that, right?
Yeah, and I'm hugely appreciative that you would share that experience with us. I think you're right. I think what you've demonstrated is that you have definitely, how was it that you put it? I've got so many notes here. A lifetimes of sales and marketing lessons earned in the trenches. That's definitely how it feels to me as well.
Lessons from the battlefield.
Lessons from the battlefield. This is what I feel like this YouTube channel is almost. It's kind of like my, who's the guy? Platoon. Who directed Platoon?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not a movie watcher.
You're not a movie watcher. Oh, you'd love this guy. Anyway, he was in Vietnam, and Platoon was it Platoon or was it the other one? I'm making a mess of this.
Oh,
Anyway,
Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks was in that, wasn't he?
not Tom
Was
Hanks.
it
No,
Tom Hanks?
no.
Anyway,
Yeah,
shows you how much I know.
he directed JFK as well. Oh, what's his name? And he directed. Anyway, he was in Vietnam, and he came back, and this was his portrayal of the war. And that's kind of what I feel this channel is about. It's about I spent some time in the trenches. I got my nose bloody. This is what I've learned. That's
Mm.
kind of what's going on, I think. So it
Yeah,
works perfectly,
you
your
know that.
analogy.
Do you know that the World War is an acronym,
No.
and it stands for "We Are Right,"
Yes.
and therefore you are wrong. And because you can't say that I'm right, I'm going to fight you and prove it.
Yes. Okay, I feel like this took a political turn then very quickly.
No, it wasn't intended to, but I mean, I read that the other day and I thought, you know what, that's an incredible truth, right?
Yes.
We are right. And that's what happens. War is conflict. It's
Yes.
I'm right and I'm inflexible. No, I'm right and I'm inflexible. Therefore, we'll go to battle.
Yes. And to bring this back to business, this is what goes on in businesses. I think businesses far too often too ego driven, and that is the failing for business, especially when it comes to sales and marketing. People want to do it exactly their way, and that for me is diametrically opposed to what should happen. Is you should do it exactly the way the market needs it to be done.
Yes, yes. Joe Vitale had a great saying. Joe Vitale was around for years and years and years. He's historically a hypnotherapist and he's highly into NLP, and he became a really good copywriter. And he taught me a very simple lesson. He said, get out of your ego and into their head.
Yes, that 100%. I think that's a great way to end. So what we'll do is we'll do the pretend goodbye now for the audience, and then I'll stop recording, and then we'll say goodbye like normal human beings. Is there anything you said that you haven't said that you should have said?
Visit my website, mediglue.com.au. Download a booklet called Are Google Ads Right for Your Business? And if they are, call me.
Fantastic. That's a great idea. That's a good way to end. Is there anything that you've said that you shouldn't have?
No.
Okay, good. Then we are done here, brother.
No
Thank you.
point, no point looking back. I can't change it, and you're not going to edit it out, right?
No, I'm
look,
not. But at least it'll be here at the end.
Well, look, I have this theory that if you never tell lies and never hide the truth, it doesn't matter what you say, nobody's going to trip you up.
Yes. Okay, good. I agree with that as well. Okay, then we are done here, James. Thank you so much for your time, man. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Can I tell you, it's been fun for me too. Thank you for the invitation.
That's only a pleasure.